Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Oh my god. Here she is. Curses and madness be upon you all, my friends. I am Euclidean Vision, the emotional support, and I think I might be in need of some emotional support right about now. Like, I might be in my own little echo chamber, right, but Echo is rattling that thing for all it's worth. I definitely set some overly specific expectations for her that I'm now trying to come to terms with, but I still have my issues concerning the Echo we finally come to know, and how that reflects on her gameplay, her story, her character, and her effects on the rest of the cast, and the Overwatch world at large. But I can't hate in total. Like, there's a ton that Blizzard have done really well with Echo here. Like, timing her release with Archives really fits the sort of thematic edge of her story, and how key her and Dr. Liao are to the history and the future of the Overwatch universe. The origin story itself, the art by Neskane, is really, really nice this time, and the direction is really, like, simplistic in its nature of how it tells its story, but it's really effective through that as well. And there's some nice subtextual nods to the sort of thematic elements that Echo's story is going to be exploring going forward. And of course, visually, she's gorgeous. Like, the character design has always been great. Her animations in-game and out-of-game have always been really particular in showcasing how sort of ethereal she is, like, and almost like graceful. Her movements are often really like delicate and gentle, which is kind of strange when you think about the fact that she's DPS, but we'll come back to that. Don't worry about that for now. The hero kit itself, being a DPS, for what it is, it's actually really effective. Like, it conveys her movement really nicely, like I said about how her animations are really gorgeously graceful, and that's conveyed in her hero kit as well, with its animations, and exactly how it's used as well, which it turns out it's pretty effective as well. It's a really enjoyable kit to use. There's a high sort of skill scaling for her kit to bring out that effectiveness, and there's some nice elements of counterplay to it as well. Ultimately, it's really fun. Like, it's fluid, it really fits the character. Like, her base weaponry or abilities all together reward different skill sets that you should be pretty familiar with from using other characters from the Overwatch universe. It's sort of expanded on and differentiated them a little bit, but that's very fitting in itself. Like, her primary fire is basically like a bunny blaster meets Doomfist hand cannon. Her sticky bombs are basically multi-pulse bombs on cooldown. Her focus beam is just a high charge Symmetra. Her flight is Pharah, but better. Sorry, Pharah. We'll come back to that as well. And Glide is getting basically the best of both worlds out of Mercy and Pharah, so sorry again, Pharah. Again, we'll come back to that. But all told, that is really fitting, that even her base kit is drawing from all these familiar elements of the Overwatch universe. I do kind of like that a lot of their unused ideas are very similar to a lot of the ones that I'd come up with. I obviously don't like that those ideas are the ones that they didn't use, but there's a load of potential to use those for talents for Overwatch 2, which is really promising for the future, and I'll come back to some of those ability ideas in a bit, because we got to talk about her ult, like literally mystery heroes the ult, like my game mode, the ultimate. I think Duplicate is a brilliant idea. I obviously speculated on it with one of my Echo hero concepts, Mimic Echo, in a sort of a different interpretation. But the whole thing rewards hero knowledge, matchups, both at the time and sort of knowledge of matchups, and your skill with particular heroes. Like, it also expands DPS players' hero exposure, which I think is really good. Like, giving them more exposure to tank and support heroes so that it can start to see the strengths of it and maybe expand the hero pools a little bit. That'd be really nice. But ultimately, the ult is just fun, man. Like, there's tons of variation. It's novel, at least in what it is. Like, it's sort of not novel. We'll come back to that again. But it is at least novel in the activation of it. It's really cool. Like, of course it's fun to suddenly become any hero on the fly. Like, of course that's great. And just to insta-ult with any ult, maybe multiple times. I don't think that's broken. I think that's actually kind of fine. I think for how it is in practice, Echo's kit's actually pretty balanced. But how it's all implemented together is, for a lot of familiar things, actually still really fun. And novel in its ways, at least especially through the voice lines on the ultimates, like, and that leads me into sort of the story connections. Like, her ult definitely bears a suggestion that Vishkar were involved in her creation in some way, and I've heard say that might be explored at some point. Don't quote me on that, but that'd be a really interesting lore drop, like, to reveal sort of an element of backstory just through mechanics, or sort of visualization of mechanics at least. And the ultimate itself, like, duplication as an ability, like, beyond gameplay, like, we're reaching into my territory now. Like, that is such a cool and expansive storytelling device. Like, you can use duplication for so many things. Like, this would be so fun to actually tell stories with. Like, infiltration missions, information gathering, revealing stuff about other characters, whether through reflecting them directly to themselves or by becoming these other characters. Like, showing off elements of what other characters may not want to reveal to other people. And then we can explore Echo's reaction to not understanding the sensitivity of people's personal information. But you can also use that to highlight her own sort of character and her own sort of state of mind by who she turns into in order to react to something in a certain way. Like, that could be super fucking dark when you think about some of the interactions you could have there, but that could also be really fun to have sort of copies of particular characters doing like combo moves together in combat, or just sort of bantering back and forth at each other, like Echo turning into McCree to poke fun at him about how silly he looks as a cowboy, and all sorts of things like that. Like, the potential of the duplication ultimate, I think, is fucking amazing, and of what Echo is, there's loads you can do with it, especially in terms of like the nature of self-identity. Like, is her replication proof that artificial life is life? Like, is what she's replicating just a replication and therefore she is provably a machine? Or is the replication through her the proof that a living thing can exist as an artificial being? Like, I'd like to think so, but then also, is Echo anybody? Can't we have some sort of journey of self-discovery within here now that her limiters have been removed? But obviously that's based on other people, but everyone's based on other people. Like, how will Echo deal with the inherited will of Dr. Liao? Does that link up with her own ideals and her own goals, her own desires? Like, how powerful is memory? Is memory proof that we are alive? It's like one of the few things that we use to distinguish ourselves as human. Like, it ties back to like the two core themes of what Overwatch is about to me, the battle of ends versus means, like artificial life being a means through which to explore the ends of existing, and the importance of the other, which has thus far been represented by the Omnics themselves, and now you've got an Omnic who literally couldn't exist without the other, as none of us can. Like, none of us would be the people we are without other people. Like, there's so much potential for Echo's story going forward, and that's part of why I don't feel so great about it at present. I'll come back to that. But there is loads still to explore going forward, like her gaining her own independence, making her own choices, whether her personality synchronization, which when you spawn in with her is said to be at 100%, what if that percentage changes? What if it goes above 100% and a certain personality takes over? Like, what if Dr. Liao is at odds with Echo and we've got a sort of Gollum and Smeagol sort of situation going on in there? Or what if it drops down to 0 and she loses all sense of personal identity and she loses her fucking ego border? Oh man, we won't even go into that. Hopefully it doesn't go down that road, or if it does, it leads back up the road from the point of no return to like the development of Echo gaining a true personality that's something like distinct. I think that's such a better end goal for her at this point than to just be everybody else. But there's also the potential of her being other people. Like, I've posited the idea for ages of there being multiple personality chips that could fit into her body to make this sort of base foundation of her personality to be formed from a different set of collected memories, for instance. And with that being said, as she's been presented as at present, is she actually more like the character of Eleanor Lamb from Bioshock 2? The concept of the utopian that has the minds and memories of multiple people coalesced into a single being. Utopia is a people, not a place, is at least the theory behind that. Like, it would feel a bit more focused to me, story-wise, if we were just dealing with the duality of Dr. Liao and Echo, as opposed to Echo just being everybody else. And that can produce its very own particular kind of being as the result of that. That would be super interesting to explore as well, but obviously through that you can see that there's so much that we can do with Echo that I think is really cool about her. But that sort of brings me to my kind of issue with her, at least at present. And there's plenty of things to go through here, but first, I mean, there's about to be an Echo in here, but let's cut to the chase, like the elephant in the room, right? Let's cut right to that. DPS? Really? Like, we all know there's so many issues with that, right? Like, her visual design not only doesn't suggest DPS, which, there's some DPS that, like Mei, for instance, that don't suggest that they're violent, per se, right? But Mei doesn't scream support to you, does she? She could be, but she could also maybe be a tank or a DPS. She could be anything. Like, she's pretty fluid in her character design. Obviously, this is pretty specific to each character design, but, I mean, Echo's Robo Mercy, she's a support, man. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I made tank versions of her, but, I mean, are you fucking serious? Like the character we'd had presented, still up until this point, like, her demeanor, her physicality, they all suggest grace, like, delicacy, like, gentleness, like, she seems like a really caring being, theoretically. Like, she was even supposed to be made to help, right? Like, I think this all does stem back to the point that apparently the developers did originally want to make her a support, and then, because they then thought that the duplicate ultimate was the best foundation to build the kit from, they had to make her a DPS so that you didn't lose out in your sort of core utility functions of an Overwatch team, and then they had to make her a DPS, and then that's gone sort of against directly, like, how her behaviour has suggested. Like, you can argue it's a subversion of the trope, maybe, that she obviously so clearly looks like a support character, and oh look, she's not, but I don't think that was their intention. It would have been far more, like, clearly obvious, and probably spoken about. If so, like, a subversion of an idea needs to be intentional, otherwise you've just kind of missed the point. And with that being said, wouldn't, like, a tank version have been a better subversion of the trope? Like, then her gameplay would have fit to the ideals of the character that we have been presented at present, so we wouldn't actually have a dissonance there, but we can have a very clear visual dissonance by having the sexy robo-angel lady becoming, I don't know, a scary spider demon lady, for instance. Like, there's more than one way to make Echo a tank, and to have her very particular non-organic physicality be actually represented in a way cooler way that would then feel more intentional as a subversion, but it will still stick true to the character at present. Like, the subversion we have at present feels more like a dissonance, because by comparison to the character we've had presented as a force for good and created in order to help the world, like, everything about her is violent. Do you know? Like, in-game, she's just better Farah, for a start. Like, again, as I said at the beginning, sorry, Farah. Like, ouch, girl. Like, this hurts. Never mind that she's also got, like, the best bunny blaster in the game. Like, her primary fire, the tri-shot, is actually pretty effective. It's pretty reliable, actually. It's a cool weapon to use. Sticky bombs is pulse bomb on cooldown. Focus beam is literally just, like, sim at max charge if you're smart about it. Flight and glide, holy shit, are Farah plus Mercy, but pretty much better, really, because horizontal movement is often actually pretty key, and it's something that Farah could use more of. And her ult is literally every other hero, but maybe multiple ults. Like, it's cool to have versatility, which I expected Echo to have, and it's always great to have options. I'm a generalist, like, but it's another thing to have, like, no discerning features of your own and still invalidate other characters. Like, if she'd been a support or a tank, I reckon her mechanics could have been way more particularly interesting and novel in themselves, without her having to sort of devalue other heroes on at least a mechanical level and maybe a story level. We'll get into that. Like, I even told a friend of mine who doesn't play Overwatch themselves, particularly, they've only played it on my account, at mine, on my PC, about the fact that Echo is a DPS, and he was just like, wait, what? But couldn't you have used a support? Like, the role balance, right? Like, wouldn't it have been nice to bring you up to 8 tanks and 8 supports? Never mind that she looks like she should have been a support anyway. So, yeah, it seems that it's, like, that clear to me that she's been shoehorned. And that's something I kind of don't like about the idea. Like, has that been done to appease Overwatch's larger player base? Like, there's more DPS players, make a new DPS. It's in order we had a tank then a support last, so a support then a tank last. So, if that's a part of the reason, that still will make me be a bit like, can you have used building up what makes Overwatch so distinctly Overwatch, instead of making a hero that's just the rest of Overwatch? Like, yeah, leading from that point, a thing that's everything else. The the whole story aspect really sort of befuddles me a bit. Like, there's several elements to that as well. Like, the reason for Echo's creation, like what Dr. Liao made Echo for and as to set out to prove, like, it seems those two things seem to be at odds with each other. Like, her setting out to prove that artificial life is fundamentally life, and then making what's described particularly as a robot, look up what robot means, that imitates those around it, that sounds like a machine. Like, Echo at this point thus far, to me, feels more determinately like a machine than a form of life. So Dr. Liao hasn't proved her point here, at least in terms of how she made Echo or what she made her for. And there's also the fact that she's thus far had the least amount of self-agency over who she is. Like, her functions were limited and she wasn't able to display all the things that she's learned, essentially. So that could be cool. How she expresses what she's learned could be how we see what Echo is. And that could be really interesting. But again, it could overshadow everyone else. That really depends. There's also the fact of, again, going back to the DPS thing, like, when you make an Omnic to, like, help the world. So, Dr. Liao's mission, right? She's there like, okay, all I wanted was to help the world. So what does she do? She builds a war machine. Okay, so how is that going to make people accept Omnics, Dr. Liao? I'm not sure exactly. But maybe if I make her a shape-shifting, omnifunctional, sexy robot war goddess, will that make things better? No. And how does that prove artificial life is fundamentally life, if she just flat-out imitates and replicates things? So, what, she's a parrot? Like, the Shambali Omnics, and even Null Sector and Bastion, personally, for fuck's sake, like, are all far greater proof of machine life being fundamental. At least to me at this point, like, all of them seem to have grown to their own choices, as opposed to being made as a machine that imitates those around it and has no opportunity to build off those conceptual categories that it's gained. Like, each of those examples seem to have evolved into life themselves. They seem to have grown into existing, into experiencing, as opposed to being gifted everybody else's. Again, that's still interesting to explore, but really doesn't prove her point as far as I'm concerned. Like, the Shambali have beliefs, do you know, that you only really gain by being a being that can form beliefs. Like, they believe that we are both living entities, humans and Omnics, and that we both have souls. That's maybe a bit of a flowery way of putting it, but contextually, I think it makes sense. Null Sector fight for Omnic rights. Why would you fight for Omnic rights if you couldn't formulate the self-idealization to do so? If you have no concept of rights as a robot, why would you fight for your own rights? You don't understand what they are. You don't have any, as far as you're concerned. Bastion, like, goes against his own programming to make decisions. Those are all, like, far greater proof to me. Yes, the world hasn't seen all of these, or doesn't have the context for all of these, but I don't see how making Echo in the way that she did has done anything to sort of back up that proof, essentially. Like, if she was trying to prove the immense potential of AI life, which was another sort of element of her goals, for sure, like, then she's done so. Oh, for fucking sure. Like, Echo's special power is literally anything you can do, I can do it better. And to be honest, that really devalues a lot of what can make the other heroes feel special or unique. Even though it doesn't really serve to make Echo feel unique either at this point. Because when you're every other super, no one else will be. But if you're everybody anyway, then who are you to begin with? Like, that could be a cool character arc to explore in ways, like despair at not being able to have independent thoughts or to feel like she has any control over what she actually does or who she is. Sort of like the loss and confusion at not being able to relate through her own means to anything, like having to use others' experiences to react to everything. Like, you can see how that makes Echo suffer and she can grow from that. That'd be really interesting, but at this point she's been dropped on us with sort of nothing in that she can be everybody and already better than everybody. Like, it'd be cool if we can give the heroes, like, in at least, like, the lore, the ability to shine past her if they're able to, like, use and adapt their own powers way better and more on the fly than she can. Like, they're far more adaptable with their own skill sets, because she can only perform the things that she's seen, right? But then, if she can just learn everything that they do, or imitate them so perfectly to be able to come to those conclusions about how to adapt their powers in the first place, she's OP from a lore perspective. Like, she just breaks every interaction with her, and she just probably makes it not that fun. Like, that would be a cool limitation for her character to break, do you know? Like, for her to be able to adapt other people's powers like they do. That would be really cool, and for to be able to, like, work in tandem with those characters. Obviously, that'd be really cool, but again, it just sort of devalues those original characters, doesn't it? Like, it really doesn't work for everybody else. They can help her learn to be her own being, but then, again, she just becomes the entire cast on steroids, and, oh god, poor Farah. Like, way to destroy Farah's kit, at least. At least Farah still has a relationship with her mother to work out, like, but fuck, poor Arissa, who just wanted to learn. Oh wait, another lady robot who just needs to learn? Oh, okay, we haven't tread that ground before. Okay, but she's a gun, and you're only a gun if you choose to be. No, that's Bastion's story. Like, that's also the Iron Giant. You've done this. Now you're even cramming elements of other characters' stories into her story. Like, this is maybe a bit too many eggs in one basket. Like, it's cool, obviously. Of course, it's fucking cool. But, man, it really feels like it could end up overshadowing everything else. Like, if they execute on it properly and give it the right limitations, then I think it could be really cool. And it could help expand our understanding of the universe, obviously I said through memories, history, other characters, exploring their emotions, their secrets, but we could also learn, like, through, especially, like, the duplication ultimate, at least some kind of explanation, even if it's from Echo's perspective, of how the certain superpowers of the Overwatch universe work, like the smoky ghosts, or the Weeb twins, or the time-space duality. Like, we could even get Echo to hear the music and expand on this pseudo-mythology question mark that they might be introduced into the Overwatch universe. Hopefully it's just a metaphor. That'd be way easier. It would keep everything a bit more constrained, that I think would be relatively better for the Overwatch universe. At this point, like, we can go to sort of cosmic entities further in the future and do like a Bloodborne Overwatch crossover. Oh my god, that'd be fucking sick. So, ultimately, I have a lot of complex thoughts about Echo, which is pretty fitting for hopefully what Echo will be. This is my point, really. Like, I feel she's been brought to us in what feels like an unsatisfying state. It feels mean to say. Like, I guess I felt she'd be further through her story so as to not overshadow everyone and be on their level, as opposed to just being this crazy potential entity that, I mean, they locked her AI down for potentially a reason that hopefully we will see. Like, they're setting some of these story elements up, I hope, that Overwatch considered her dangerous, and we're going to see that she's dangerous. Like, her personality synchronization is 100%, and we're being told that because we're going to see that number change. Like, I super hope that that's the case. That'd be so fucking interesting. But for all the time it's spent building up Echo and giving us this impression of her, and for it then to be so kind of dissonant for what it's been built up as, maybe that's just my expectation. I think there are some sort of objective elements that exist currently that are a bit at odds with each other. Like, I don't know if that sensation is worth it, essentially. Like, yeah, she essentially feels sort of slightly unsatisfying to me, especially from a story aspect and sort of just a general sort of aesthetic, that, yeah, I have to almost, like, look more forward to the future and then overhype myself even more for what Echo could be, as I've been doing all this time, and now she's here and I'm still doing the same fucking thing. Oh my god. And so at that point, before I lose my ego border and become a replica of everybody else around me and download my consciousness into a sexy robot version of myself, I'm going to leave it there. Because that's enough, I think. Because, yeah, it's just going to turn into an echo chamber. Thank you for staying with me to this point. If you are still here, like, that's some true dedication. Thank you very much for staying with me to listen to my ridiculous ramblings about this sexy robot lady, who I've probably invested far too much in. Please do all the YouTube things if you enjoy my content. It'd be really nice to get to do this a bit more, especially as we could all be locked up inside for a bit longer. And so really make sure to take care of yourselves out there, teammates. I've been Euclidean Vision, the emotional support. Go in peace, and may the glorious light of Best Girl shine within you. Bye bye.